The first time he noticed her, she was wiping down a table with trembling hands, trying to smile through the pain that seemed to radiate from her every movement. Her eyes darted nervously every time someone approached, and there was something in the way she flinched at loud noises, the way she held herself tightly, almost like she was bracing for impact. It wasn't the bustling diner or the clattering dishes that caught his attention. It was the bruises peeking out from under the sleeves of her uniform, dark and stubborn against her pale skin. He didn't know her story, and yet in that moment, 1,000 questions swirled in his mind. Who had done this to her? How long had she been suffering in silence? And more than anything, he wondered if anyone would ever step in to protect her. Before we dive into what happened next, make sure you're subscribed to Kindness Tales so you don't miss the stories that touch the heart. Give this video a like if it moves you, and share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you and your own experiences of kindness. He was a man known around town, though not in the way most people would admire. As the leader of a biker gang, he carried a reputation for toughness, for riding hard and keeping his own rules. Most people avoided trouble with him, and some feared even crossing his path. But beneath the leather jacket and the hard exterior, there was a code he lived by: loyalty, protection, and a fierce sense of justice that wasn't always visible to the world. He had seen a lot, heard even more, but nothing had prepared him for the vulnerability he witnessed in the diner that evening. She had been working there for years, but lately something had changed. Her normally bright demeanor had dimmed, and there were days she barely managed to smile. The regulars had noticed her anxiety, the way she kept checking the door, as if expecting someone she didn't want to see. She moved quickly, mechanically, cleaning up spills and refilling coffee cups, but her hands shook and she flinched at the smallest touch. He watched quietly from his usual corner booth, sipping his coffee and pretending to read a newspaper. But his attention was fixed entirely on her. There was a heaviness in the air, a silent cry for help that only someone willing to see beyond the surface could recognize. Over the next few weeks, he started coming in more often, not to intimidate or impress, but to simply be near her, to observe and understand without intrusion. He learned her routine, noticed her interactions with the other staff, and paid attention to the subtle signs that something was wrong. There was a grace in the way she moved, even under the weight she carried. But the bruises didn't lie. He had questions, yes, but he also knew that trust had to be earned before any of those questions could be asked. One evening, when the diner was quieter than usual, he approached her table as she collected empty plates. She froze, instinctively tensing up, ready to recoil, and yet he simply smiled, gentle and disarming, and asked if she was okay. It took time. Weeks passed before she spoke more than a few guarded words. He didn't push. He didn't probe. He shared stories about his life on the road, about the people he had met, the struggles he had faced, slowly letting her see that he wasn't a threat. And little by little, she began to lower her guard, just a fraction, enough to let him glimpse the pain she had endured. She spoke quietly one evening about how she had tried to manage, to keep her life together while hiding the bruises, the emotional scars that came with them. She didn't want anyone to interfere. She had long ago convinced herself that no one could help, that the world would turn a blind eye. He listened, not with judgment, but with a determination to do something. That night, he stayed long after the diner closed, driving through quiet streets, thinking through a plan that wouldn't terrify her or make things worse. He wasn't just thinking about a single act of kindness. He was considering how to restore a sense of safety, to remind her that not everyone in the world was willing to let harm go unchecked. The next day, he returned to the diner with a small gift, something simple, a warm coat, because winter was coming and she often looked cold. Physically and emotionally, it was a gesture that spoke volumes. She hesitated, glancing at him with suspicion, and then a small, uncertain smile broke across her face. It was the first real smile he had seen in weeks. But he knew kindness alone wouldn't be enough. Her situation required protection, and for that, He leaned on his world, the biker gang that followed his lead without question. Quietly, carefully, he arranged for a network of support, people who could keep watch and ensure that she wasn't left vulnerable. He didn't flaunt it, didn't make a scene. He simply made sure someone was there if she needed help. The day she realized she could leave work without fear was the day she allowed herself to breathe deeply for the first time in months. She didn't yet understand the full measure of what he had done, but the weight on her shoulders began to lighten, imperceptibly at first, then steadily. As the days passed, the town began to notice subtle changes. Patrons commented on her brighter attitude, the ease in her movements, the way she laughed again, soft but genuine. She still bore the marks of her past, but they were no longer her defining feature. The biker leader continued his visits, though now they were friendly conversations, sharing stories, coffee, and sometimes just silence. It was in those silences that trust grew, where she discovered that protection could come without fear, and that kindness could exist even in unexpected places. Then came the day that changed everything. The person responsible for her injuries had returned to town, unaware that someone had been quietly watching. The moment he appeared, the biker leader and a few trusted friends were ready. They didn't seek vengeance in the dramatic way some might expect. Instead, they confronted him calmly, firmly, and ensured that he would no longer be a threat. The resolution was swift, clean, and dignified, leaving the community stunned. Many had expected violence, chaos, or retaliation, but what unfolded was something entirely different. A careful act of justice, rooted in protection rather than rage. Word of what had happened spread, though the details were vague. The diner became a place where people felt safer, and patrons often commented on the strength of the woman who had endured so much yet continued to face each day with courage. She no longer flinched at sudden movements or loud voices. Her eyes, once wary, held a quiet confidence. People admired her, but she rarely spoke of the biker leader's role, preferring to let the change speak for itself. The lessons were clear for anyone willing to notice. Kindness isn't always loud, and bravery doesn't always come from confrontation. It often comes from standing with someone quietly until they feel strong enough to stand themselves. Months later, the town would reflect on that period as one of unexpected inspiration. Neighbors helped one another more openly, offering small gestures of support and solidarity. The diner thrived not just because of the food, but because of the warmth that radiated from someone who had been lifted from fear and despair. And though the biker leader remained a figure of awe and mystery, most understood that his reputation for toughness was only one part of his character. Beneath the leather, behind the tattoos and the rumbling motorcycles, there was a heart capable of extraordinary empathy, one that had changed a life in a profound and lasting way. In the end, the real magic wasn't in the drama or the reputation. It was in the quiet acts of courage and compassion. It was the way one person's willingness to see another's pain could ripple through a community, inspiring others to act with care, with thoughtfulness, and with love. The waitress's life had been forever changed, not just by safety and protection, but by the knowledge that someone truly saw her, believed in her, and refused to let the world ignore her suffering. That lesson, subtle yet powerful, is one that we can all carry with us. Kindness isn't always grand or public. Sometimes it's simply showing up when someone needs it most, listening when they need to be heard, and standing beside them until they feel whole again. And maybe that's the greatest takeaway we can share with each other today, that every small act of care, every decision to protect rather than judge, has the power to transform a life. The waitress's smile, the calm confidence in her eyes, and the quiet strength she now carries are reminders that kindness changes more than a moment. It changes a trajectory. It changes a community. It changes a heart. So let's take a moment to reflect, to offer help where we can, to speak gently, to notice the hidden struggles around us, and to let compassion guide our actions. Share your own stories of kindness in the comments, because each story reminds us that goodness is always possible, even in the most unexpected places, and that when we choose to act with heart, We can create a world that is a little safer, a little warmer and infinitely more hopeful.